Welcome to Literary Insights. This is the summary of the book All In: How Great Leaders Build Unstoppable Teams, Mike Michalowicz. If you like this content, please consider subscribing and liking this video. The introduction contrasts the experiences of two security guards, one who damaged an expensive painting at a museum in Russia, and one who helped curate an exhibition at the Baltimore Museum of Art and developed an appreciation for the art. Building engaged, caring teams is a struggle for businesses both large and small. Small businesses in particular face challenges in recruitment, retention, and performance management due to limited resources. The author was approached by a large insurance company seeking insights on how small businesses build dedicated teams despite fewer rewards and stability compared to large corporations. Drawing from his own experience building teams for his small businesses, the author realized that finding and retaining great employees required changes to his mindset and approach beyond standard hiring and motivation tactics. The introduction sets up the rest of the book to share the author's lessons learned on building unstoppable teams that care deeply about the company's success through establishing the right culture, processes, and leadership. The author hired a new employee, Elliot, to help take workload off himself and his business partner, since their business was growing rapidly. Elliot seemed qualified on paper, but received no real training. Elliot struggled in the field and constantly called the author with questions. This added more burden instead of reducing workload. Within a month, Elliot had customized technology configurations and passwords in a way that only he knew how to support clients. This gave Elliot leverage over the author. Elliot then demanded a raise, threatening to leave and cause issues for clients. The author contemplated paying Elliot more to motivate and retain him, even if his performance was poor. Finally, Elliot quit abruptly, claiming a family emergency requiring him to leave for a week. This revealed Elliot was not truly invested in the company. The main point is the author struggled to find and retain good employees. Hiring Elliot, who seemed qualified but lacked real training, backfired, as Elliot became indispensable in the wrong way and unmotivated. This caused major problems and workload for the author. The passage describes how the author struggled to keep employees engaged at his first company. He tried various strategies like paying more, flex time, culture building, but nothing really worked long term. He then started a second company in computer forensics and used it as a petri dish to experiment with different engagement strategies by tossing darts at ideas on his dartboard. Some strategies worked temporarily, but overall engagement was still an issue. If you liked the book, you can purchase it using the links in the description below. By buying through these links, you contribute to the channel without paying any extra, as we receive a small commission. This helps us bring more quality content to you. His company was then acquired by Robert Half. On his first day, he felt abandoned, as no one from the new company communicated with him or gave him direction on what to do. Over time, Robert Half started shifting employees like Mary Ellen into new roles that did not fit and made no sense. Employees became distressed. Performance declined dramatically under the new leadership. When confronted, the author scoffed at the suggestion he fix things, as the new company had never properly interviewed him about his actual role leading operations previously. So in summary, the passage discusses the author's ongoing challenges with employee engagement over two companies and how acquisition led to further disengagement and issues under the new leadership at Robert Half. The author had a difficult experience being fired from a previous corporate job after things went badly with an employee named Elliot. During his firing, his boss John screamed at him angrily, and the author realized John wasn't actually a dick. The real problem was the author's own lack of leadership and failure to properly train, support, and empower Elliot. Leaving that job, the author realized he wanted to start his own company and be a better leader this time by truly caring about his employees and helping them reach their full potential. He discusses that many employees simply see their job as a way to earn a living rather than part of their identity, whereas business owners see their work as identity forming. The key is bridging this gap by empowering employees' identity and potential. He presents an all-in formula with 4 parts: fit, ability, safety, ownership, FASO model. that ensures employees care about the company as much as the leader by focusing on these areas like proper job fit, abilities over just qualifications, feelings of safety, and a sense of ownership. Teams experience entropy over time as tasks, projects, and responsibilities shift and pile up without clear organization. This leads to disorder and unclear job roles. It's important to define the key tasks and elements of each position rather than focusing on individual job titles. Break down positions into their component parts. Match individuals' abilities to the specific task elements, even if they don't fulfill all listed duties. Someone may excel at 3 critical tasks. As a business grows, routinely dust off job descriptions and reorganize responsibilities to counteract the natural entropy. Ensure positions still serve their core objectives. Recruiting is most effective when understanding positions' needs first, then seeking multiple individuals who can fulfill different element needs, rather than focusing on a single person to do all listed tasks. The key points are that jobs naturally experience disorder over time due to shifting responsibilities, so leaders must regularly evaluate and reorganize positions to clearly define core tasks and match individuals' talents to specific elements. Breaking down holistic job roles enhances matching of abilities. Organizational entropy refers to the natural tendency for unnecessary tasks and disorder to build up over time in organizations as roles change or are not well defined. This can confuse employees and consumers. To prevent entropy, leaders should reduce variability by setting fewer, clearer rules and objectives that have a bigger impact. They should focus on the most important outcomes and remove unnecessary barriers and tasks. Gibson Guitars struggled as it expanded product lines without clarity, confusing consumers. Under new leadership, they focused on fewer, higher quality guitars to restore clarity. Leaders should define the primary job and must-have tasks for each role to provide clarity. They should focus on hiring for qualities instead of qualifications that are not essential. When replacing high performers, focusing on replicating the individual is unlikely to succeed. Instead, the key tasks and qualities that made them successful should be identified and used to define the new role. Here are the key points. When someone moves on from your company or moves up within your company, you don't need to find someone to take on all of their duties. You can distribute different parts of their job to multiple people. It's important to carefully analyze what the person's primary responsibilities were and then determine who is best suited for each part of the job. Look at qualities and qualifications. Qualities are innate traits, while qualifications are skills gained through experience. Understanding where current employees got their qualifications can help identify who might be suited for new roles. Match specific qualities and qualifications to the tasks being transferred. Not all tasks require the same skills. Don't try to change employees to fit a role, but rather identify their natural strengths and channel them into roles that play to those strengths. They may excel if placed in the right position. Consider existing employees first when new roles open up. They have institutional knowledge that makes transferring responsibilities easier. Look for natural fits rather than always hiring externally. Consider repositioning existing employees within your company first to match their skills and talents to new tasks roles before looking outside. This allows people to develop new skills within the company. You may also consider people who are associated with your company but not currently employees, such as clients, competitors, subcontractors, or former interns employees. Your familiarity with their skills and their familiarity with your company can allow them to get up to speed more quickly on senior roles. The author has found success hiring these types of individuals who are already somewhat familiar with the company culture and operations. It allows a quicker onboarding process compared to completely new external hires. However, an asterisk is that entry-level or more simple roles may still be best filled by completely new external hires who can then develop skills within the company over time. Kip argues that businesses tend to hire mostly B and C players who do just enough work to get by. These employees are less engaged and see their job as just a paycheck. Kip's strategy is to hire fewer but higher quality A players. He pays A players above market rate and offers good benefits. Though it seems more expensive, Kip argues it actually costs less because one A player can do the work of 3 B players or 9 C players. So paying one A player a higher salary is cheaper than paying 3 or 9 average employees. Kip points out that anyone has the potential to be an A player if given the right environment, training, and opportunity to develop their skills. Leaders should focus on developing employees' potential rather than assuming talent is fixed. Many leaders wrongly assume only 5 to 10% of people are true A players. But when given the right role and conditions, most people have the ability to perform like A players. It's the leader's job to create those conditions. So in summary, Kip argues for hiring fewer but higher quality employees, developing their potential in order to get more work done at a lower overall cost than hiring many average performers. Here are the key points this passage makes about assessing abilities in employees. Experiential abilities are skills and experiences listed on a resume, what someone has already proven they can do. Innate abilities are qualities someone is born with, like personality traits and intelligence, that cannot be taught. Potential abilities are strengths someone could acquire given the right environment, conditions, and leadership. This is the least explored aspect of an individual. When hiring, companies typically focus on experiential and innate abilities, ignoring potential. But potential is important to consider. Great leaders help employees develop and maximize their potential abilities. Simply looking at past experience misses an opportunity to shape future performance. Workshops and hands-on activities can help reveal a person's curiosity, desire, and thirst, early indicators of their potential if given the right support and development. Considering all three abilities, experiential, innate, and potential, leads to a more holistic view of an individual and their long-term fit for an organization. Good leaders focus on developing potential, not just past resume items. In summary, the passage advocates assessing not just what candidates have already proven, but also their innate traits and future potential if given the right development opportunities under strong leadership. The passage discusses using workshops or hands-on experiential training events to recruit candidates rather than traditional interviewing. It argues this approach finds people with more potential, curiosity, desire, and passion for the job skills. It cites the example of Domino's Pizza Hero app that recruited hundreds of new employees who genuinely enjoyed making pizza, not just looking for a job. It recommends hosting workshops, classes, training sessions to identify the most skilled and interested participants rather than just posting job ads. These could be in-person, virtual, free, or for a small fee. During the workshop, the organizers should teach skills, immerse participants in hands-on activities, and monitor their abilities, interest, and desire to identify the best candidates. Not everyone needs to be told it is also a recruiting event. It provides tips on setting up a first workshop, including choosing skills to teach, marketing the event, using the TIM method during, and following up with advanced workshops for top candidates. The goal is to transform the interview process and instead find people with potential, curiosity, and passion for the job through an experiential learning workshop approach. Here is a summary of the key points. Tuesday wanted to help educate young women in Africa so they could gain jobs and start businesses. She realized accounting bookkeeping jobs could be outsourced to Africa as well as India. She partnered with a nonprofit and runner to start the Findiwe Business Academy to train women in Kenya. 11 students participated virtually in the initial program. Those who passed her tests received certificates and jobs at her firm. This allows her to directly assess their skills and potential. The program benefits the women by increasing their skills and opportunities. It benefits Tuesday's company by providing well-trained recruits who are a strong fit. The story highlights how training potential candidates oneself allows for a thorough evaluation and strengthening of abilities on both sides. It's a win-win approach. So in summary, Tuesday founded a training program that educates women in Africa while also directly sourcing top talent for her own accounting outsourcing business through hands-on evaluation of the trainees. The 5-star fit process involves assessing candidates on their innate abilities, potential abilities, and experience to see if they are a good match for the role's requirements. In Phase 1, candidates complete a 35-minute online assessment. About 60% don't complete it, and 50% of those who do score too low to advance. This weeds out unqualified or unmotivated candidates. In Phase 2, candidates who score 70% or higher on the assessment move to a 20-minute initial phone or video screening interview about their resume and motivations. The goal is to identify candidates with interest, passion, and qualifications for the role before investing more time in interviews. Ranking candidates on their fit for the specific role rather than general ratings aims to identify the best performers. When implemented at the Maverick Group agency, this process allowed them to scale to over $15 million in revenue, while the founder spent less than 10 hours per week on operations, indicating it identified highly effective employees. The passage describes a 5-phase process for identifying and hiring the best candidates. Phase 1 involves screening interviews, which can be as short as 90 seconds. The goal is to determine initial fit and potential. Phase 2 involves longer interviews to further assess fit and potential. Phase 3 is a skills demonstration where candidates take tests related to the job responsibilities. This could include tests of skills like bookkeeping, software programs, or client interactions. Phase 4 is a deep dive interview to understand the candidate's future goals and dreams, both personally and professionally, and how they align with the company's goals. Phase 5 is a shadow day, where candidates spend a paid day at the organization, meeting people and experiencing the culture and job responsibilities through projects or assignments. This allows both parties to determine if there is a good fit. The passage emphasizes taking time with this process to avoid rushed hiring decisions that could lead to bad hires. It argues workshops and starting the process early can help fill roles without feeling rushed. Finally, it discusses assessing candidates on 3 key qualities: being limber and adaptable to change, commitment to learning, and strong listening skills. Jewell told the story of the Fit for Hire program launched by Chicago Medical Center, CMC, in 1991 to fill 12 new clinic coordinator positions. Typically, interviews tended to favor white candidates while overlooking strong minority candidates. The union also worried minority candidates would be passed over. Through the Fit for Hire program, 54 candidates did interviews and skills testing over 2 days, with scenarios to evaluate abilities like patience, accuracy, teamwork. Testing revealed candidates who interviewed well didn't perform skills well, and vice versa, challenging assumptions. CMC hired based on skills testing results, which happened to be 12 African American candidates. They became top performers, unlike previous hiring results. The hiring manager showed great leadership by challenging assumptions, believing in an alternative process, and embracing the results that proved traditional interviews wrong. Everyone demonstrated great leadership in collaborating on a fairer hiring approach. The story describes a failed employment initiative by Mars Inc. called the Punctuality Bonus that aimed to improve punctuality by giving employees an extra 5% of their daily wages for punching in before their start time. However, it backfired as employees felt punished for not getting the bonus rather than rewarded for being on time. This led to issues like employees covering for each other and arguments over long punch-in lines. In a desperate attempt to qualify for the bonus during a snowstorm, one executive dangerously abandoned his car in the road and ran through snowdrifts just to punch in on time, risking his and others' lives. The program ultimately failed and demotivated employees more after it was canceled, since the bonus was now removed. It created unsafe psychological, physical, and financial pressures for staff. The key lesson is that well-intentioned policies can have unintended negative consequences if not carefully considered from all angles beforehand. Monitoring and enforcement caused more harm than the intended benefit of improved punctuality. The passage discusses 3 types of safety that are important for employees to feel at work: physical, psychological, and financial safety. It gives examples of how a lack of physical safety, like the radium factory example, can endanger employees' health and lead to tragic consequences. Proper safety protocols and honesty about risks are important. Psychological safety is about feeling comfortable bringing up ideas, questions, or mistakes without fear of punishment. Examples show how lacking this can prevent employees from fully being themselves or contributing their best work. Leaders set the tone. Financial safety concerns, ensuring employees and growing companies are supported through changes like rapid growth. Proper compensation and benefits help maintain high performance as things change rapidly. The overall message is that considering employees' safety in these various dimensions can help them feel secure, valued, and able to contribute their best at work, which benefits both individuals and the organization. Unintended consequences may threaten safety, so ongoing monitoring and improvement efforts are important for leaders. Hammett studied over 500 companies since 2018 to identify common factors that enabled high-performing teams to continue performing well, even in fast-changing environments. His research identified 6 levers or factors that drove high team engagement: mission alignment, transparency, inclusion, growth, empowerment, and mindset. Surprisingly, the biggest factor was transparency, sharing financial and performance information openly with employees. This builds trust. The author shared an example from his own company where he initially assumed profit sharing was enough transparency, but learned employees didn't fully understand the financial situation. Now the company does Monday metrics sessions to openly report finances each week to give employees better context. The article recommends surveying employees to truly understand their perspectives on physical, emotional, and financial safety, rather than making assumptions. It provides examples of good versus great leadership in promoting various types of safety for employees. The key is going beyond just checking boxes to genuinely committing to psychological safety. The next section discusses an art exhibit at the Baltimore Museum of Art curated by security guards to empower their voices and give them authority over the art. This initiative boosted engagement and diversity. The exhibit Guarding the Art at the Baltimore Museum of Art, BMA, fostered greater psychological ownership among the security guards. They started taking more initiative and became more involved with other staff and trustees. One guard, Michael Jones, designed a special case to protect a bronze door knocker piece that visitors tended to touch. He said protecting the art was like being a custodian for objects they live with day and night. Referring to the door knocker as he was glad she was finally safe. This demonstrated how deeply Jones identified with and cared for the museum and its collection. By giving the guards a voice in the exhibit, the BMA leaders increased the guards' sense of psychological ownership over their roles and the museum. Psychological ownership theory developed from research by John Pierce on employee stock ownership plans, ESOPs. Simply providing financial ownership is not enough. Employees must also feel control, knowledge, and investment in what they own. When psychological ownership exists, employees will protect and defend what they own, work harder, and identify more strongly with the organization's goals. It results in greater job satisfaction, involvement, and reduces turnover. Psychological ownership occurs when someone feels a strong sense of possession or ownership over something, even if they do not legally own it. This can motivate them to protect, defend, and care for that thing. Kate Oakley defended her pet goose Frankie from an attacking bald eagle, despite risks to herself, because she felt psychological ownership over Frankie. Ukrainians fighting to defend their country from Russian invasion shows psychological ownership over their land and ideology. They see it as defending what is rightfully theirs. Psychological ownership can have downsides, like the inventor who spent a decade developing a product called Light Glove, but never achieved commercial success due to lack of demand, yet couldn't let it go due to his strong ownership feelings. Giving employees personalized ownership over small tools like gloves and labeling larger tools with their names fostered psychological ownership. This led employees to care for the tools better and reduce costs from damage and replacement. It also improved employee retention, productivity, and customer service. Psychological ownership was a factor in an employee almost leaving her job due to lack of respect and control. But her ownership was restored when her boss gave her more autonomy and control over her department. This led to better work and department growth. Psychological ownership can motivate employees to think of solutions and strategize even outside of work hours due to their investment in the company's success. The story describes how early boat tours on the Jungle Cruise attraction at Disneyland had very boring commentary from the guides. The boat drivers decided to take ownership of their tours and started making silly puns and jokes about the animatronic animals turning it into a comedic ride. This improved the experience and made it very popular. The key lesson is that when employees feel a sense of ownership over their job, they will solve problems and improve things without being told to. This allows management to focus on higher-level strategy. The passage then gives an example of Stephen King, who owns grocery stores. He started giving employees ownership over specific areas, like Shyla over the soda fountain. This empowered them and improved operations. Passing ownership to employees, even challenging ones, can help them thrive. The story describes how giving a struggling employee sole responsibility for the beer cooler turned his performance and engagement around. Psychological ownership strategies like shared vision, autonomy, input into goals, and possessive language can foster more engagement from employees. So, in summary, the passage advocates for giving employees a sense of ownership over their work to motivate them to take initiative and solve problems independently. The summary is, the passage discusses how great leaders give employees psychological ownership by giving them control over their work and holding them accountable to standards. This increases employee commitment and retention. It then provides an example of how giving an employee named Sankara psychological ownership from his first day on the job led to him becoming highly loyal and committed to staying with the company long-term. The key aspects that contributed to this were making Sankara feel welcomed, involved, and invested in the company from the beginning. Tyler got a job at an environmental company. The owner seemed like a good person, but the job itself was stressful. On Tyler's first day, everyone was busy and he felt ignored. He had to work 3 hours of overtime, then was left alone to monitor a project he knew nothing about until 9 p.m. When Tyler got home after a 14-hour day, his fiancée asked how his first day was. He replied it sucked. This indicated his potential love for the company was dead on arrival. Tyler explained how overwhelmed, disorganized, and abandoned he felt. On his third day, he gave his 2-week notice. The passage emphasizes making an employee's first day remarkable through welcoming gestures, team introductions, tours, lunches, and including them in activities to build excitement and anticipation. Daily huddles are recommended for quick sharing of updates, wins, challenges, recognition, and goals to foster communication and togetherness. Weekly one-on-one meetings with employees are said to be very important for retention. They allow any issues to be addressed right away and opportunities to be seized faster, leading to greater connection and cohesion. Here is a summary of key points about E-on-ones and retreats. E-on-ones, one-on-one meetings, should start by checking in on the person's well-being, not just work updates. Ask how they are doing or what's on their mind. Discuss work progress, any roadblocks, and areas needing assistance or correction. Document action items and have the person summarize the meeting in an email for accountability. Quarterly retreats disrupt work routines to realign goals and tackle challenges differently. Includes metric reviews, brainstorming, and team bonding. Annual retreats are longer, 3 days, to foster deeper connections. More time for creative thinking and collective ownership of new initiatives. Retreats follow similar agendas, but with personality assessments, skills training, and discussing company vision. The purpose of retreats is both human growth through connections and business growth via strategic planning. Starting with crowdsourcing the shared purpose is recommended. The annual review is an opportunity to celebrate an employee's loyalty and contribution over the past year. Every year they work for you is a significant part of their overall career. It's a good time to revisit compensation with a potential salary adjustment. This allows for budget planning as well. The review also reconnects with the employee's potential and growth. Discuss how their role or responsibilities could expand based on their skills and interests. The bonds formed between leaders and employees through regular check-ins, shared experiences, and getting to know people on a personal level help build a strong, cohesive work culture and community. Prioritizing relationships is key to employee engagement and motivation. The passage discusses how focusing on employees' well-being, purpose, and dreams can be an effective motivational strategy called the Joy Formula. It presents examples of companies that implemented this strategy successfully. Paddy Condon, the owner of FBC Remodel, realized he needed to go beyond revenue goals to motivate his employees. He developed the Joy Formula framework, which tracks employees' success and well-being. This led to improved retention, productivity, and financial outcomes. Jancoa, a janitorial services company, struggled with high turnover until owners Mary and Tony Miller started thinking of how to attract and retain talent like customers. Their Dream Engineer program helped employees identify and pursue personal dreams, like home ownership. This created a strong culture of caring and loyalty among employees. Prioritizing employees' dreams and whole well-being, not just their job performance, inspires them to align their efforts with the company's goals. When leaders tap into employees' one-day dreams and support their fulfillment, it shows employees care and motivates high performance. The passage argues focusing on employees' well-being, purpose, and dreams through a framework like the Joy Formula can be an effective motivational strategy for organizations. The passage discusses how to help employees develop dreams and goals. It argues that many employees have lost the ability to dream due to past negative experiences. Managers are encouraged to have deeper conversations to understand employees' true desires, which may initially be expressed as superficial non-dreams, like wanting to win the lottery. Focusing solely on short-term goals misses the emotional element of dreams. The passage provides examples of companies that help employees identify dreams and break them into achievable steps. Techniques include posting dream boards, tracking progress publicly, and having coworkers support each other's dreams. This aligns employee and company goals, inspiring greater motivation and productivity. Good leadership focuses on job progression, compensation, and vision. Great leadership additionally helps employees set meaningful personal goals and dreams. Nurturing dreams pays off in higher engagement and devotion to organizational success. The overall message is that caring about employees as whole people, not just workers, creates a more beneficial work culture and outcomes. Great leaders focus on both team and individual goals. They ask employees to express personal dreams and help them achieve those goals in addition to company goals. This increases motivation. Aligning individual and company visions helps employees feel their personal goals matter. It motivates them to help fulfill the company vision. Incorporating life updates into meetings helps make employees' lives a bigger part of work. This rewards work-life balance. Effective teams, like in The Wizard of Oz, are unified around a shared purpose, but have diversity. They care about each other's individual dreams. Building community comes before instilling culture. Community strengthens connection and results in a culture that resonates more than top-down mandated values. An organization's culture should evolve as the community grows and changes. Immutable laws defined by founders may need refreshing as diversity increases to fit the new community. When you know better, do better. Brian, the leader of a junk removal company, gave a tour to the author and shared some concerns. His employees couldn't recall the company's core values or acronym, PIPE, that was displayed on the wall. The author spoke to several employees who described how they genuinely care for customers and take pride in helping them through challenging life situations like divorces or fires. One employee recalled a job where they carefully sorted metal scraps for full recycling, serving both the customer and environment. At a team meeting, all employees arrived early out of respect for each other's time, showing they live the core values. Though the employees couldn't recite the exact acronym, they embodied the values in their own words through their actions. Living the values is more important than memorizing words. Brian was pleased to see the employees genuinely upholding the core beliefs of the company in their work. So in summary, the junk removal company's employees couldn't recall the written values, but demonstrated through their work and attitudes that they had internalized the core principles of caring for customers and the environment. The passage describes the author's first job out of college at a computer retailer, where he started as a programmer, but was discovered to have potential in other roles like sales and teaching. He had two bosses, a bad boss and a good boss. The bad boss gave him an overwhelming government bid proposal to work on, which he spent nights and weekends completing, only to have the bad boss throw it in the garbage as a joke. This destroyed the author's psychological safety and ownership. The bad boss also openly punished mistakes in humiliating ways, like making the author reinstall software while being watched closely as punishment for a client virus issue. In contrast, the good boss supported the author by listening, engaging with him, and seeing mistakes as learning opportunities through debriefs rather than punishments. He also publicly acknowledged successes. The bad boss made the author feel meaningless in his job, while the good boss gave him reasons to want to prove himself and stay at the company despite the bad boss's treatment. This highlighted the importance of leadership styles in employee experience and performance. Here is a summary of the key points. The passage contrasts a good boss versus a bad boss. The good boss empowered employees, saw potential in them, and helped them grow. The bad boss tried to intimidate and control employees. The good boss gave the author many opportunities to learn and grow, such as training courses and classes. This helped shape the author and make him a rising star at the company. Despite the bad boss's intimidating behavior, the good boss's efforts to develop the author outweighed it for a time. However, over time, the bad boss's behavior took its toll, and the author lost interest in the company. The good boss cared about empowering individuals and helping them reach their potential. He stood up for the author when confronting the bad boss. The passage advocates being a good boss by giving employees opportunities to grow, such as training programs and creating personal operating manuals to understand individual employees' preferences and communication styles. This helps set clear expectations and better support individuals. In summary, it contrasts effective leadership that empowers and develops individuals versus intimidating control, advocating for the former approach of being a good boss who helps employees learn and reach their potential. Here is a summary of the key points. The article proposes moving away from traditional command and control organizational structures represented by a pyramid chart, where directions flow down from top leadership. Instead, it recommends adopting a web structure where there is more direct communication between individuals, and individuals can solve problems independently and have ownership over their roles. In a web structure, if one connection is removed, the overall structure remains intact, analogous to a spider web. This makes it more flexible and adaptable than a rigid pyramid. The author had a negative experience with a command and control boss earlier in their career, where talented employees left due to the restrictive organizational structure. A web structure empowers individuals, engages leadership directly with people, and allows the organization to be more nimble and able to adjust to changes like losing connections/people. Overall, it's presented as a more effective model than the traditional pyramid. The passage discusses the importance of adapting communication and work environments to changing times. It describes an experiment by Best Buy called the Results-Only Work Environment, ROE, which gave employees full autonomy and accountability with no strict schedules or meeting requirements. This led to improved work-life balance for employees, higher productivity, and Best Buy's best sustained growth period. However, a new CEO later canceled ROE, wanting a more traditional command and control approach. While Best Buy saw its best years under ROE, most leaders prefer sticking to familiar policies over truly innovative changes, even if less effective. The key takeaway is that leaders must be willing to adapt structures and policies as work environments evolve over time in order to maintain effectiveness. Strict adherence to the past can hold an organization back from realizing its full potential. Changing work environments takes time and consideration for how employees will be affected. Employees may be skeptical and feel their needs are not being considered. It's important to show continued support for employees through the transition. Building personal relationships at work is important to combat loneliness and foster employee engagement. Face-to-face interaction is key for developing strong bonds. Companies should prioritize getting remote employees together in person regularly. Finding the right blend of in-office and remote work can optimize productivity by matching tasks to environments. Writing may work best from home or travel, while collaboration benefits from being in person. Asking employees what works best for them individualizes approaches. Presenteeism refers to being physically at work but not fully productive due to illness, exhaustion, or other issues. Simple screening, education, and encouraging employees to care for their health can help address this and boost productivity. Praising perfect attendance can encourage unproductive presenteeism. Here is a summary of the key points. The story is about an employee who had a long history of performance issues, like unexplained absences, tardiness, and leaving work to make personal calls. He had been warned about potential termination. When he was finally fired, he claimed discrimination even though his boss shared his race, ethnicity. He filed a claim with the EEOC. Upon being informed again that he would still be terminated due to ongoing performance problems, he became enraged. He stormed out of the office and allegedly tried to physically attack the company president. This is an example of an employee dismissal going badly wrong, with the employee resorting to violence, apparently due to not accepting the termination decision. Attorney Nancy Green shared this story as an example of some of the more extreme, rage-filled reactions she has seen from dismissed employees in her career handling employment law cases. So in summary, it describes an incident where an employee facing termination for cause allegedly threatened violence against company leadership in a failed attempt to keep his job. The attorney presented it as an illustration of how badly some employee dismissals can escalate. Here is a summary of the key points. Nancy, a lawyer who specializes in small business employment law, shares an extreme example of an employee who tried to run over the company president with his truck after being fired for filing a discrimination complaint. Nancy advises that no one should be surprised when they are fired. She says termination should be handled carefully to avoid upset employees reacting badly. The author argues that getting fired doesn't always have to be negative. It can open doors to new opportunities. Employees who are no longer a good fit should not be held back from finding a better role. Hiring should be done slowly and carefully to assess fit, while firing should be done slower by trying performance improvements, finding alternative roles, or correcting misunderstandings before termination. If all options are exhausted and an employee is still not working out, termination conversations should happen after establishing communication through regular check-ins to address issues early. The original scheduling conflict for a company retreat was likely unintentional and due to lack of communication. Rescheduling meetings and events earlier in the future can help prevent such issues. As leaders, our job is not to point fingers when employees underperform, but to understand the reasons for underperformance and make any necessary changes to support optimal performance. One-on-one meetings with employees should be held privately and use language that shows curiosity and listening, like, "Here's what I've observed. What are your thoughts?" rather than phrases that position one person as right and the other wrong. Gestalt principles and the Gestalt language protocol provide an effective framework for difficult conversations by focusing on the whole picture rather than individual mistakes, using I statements and asking how rather than why. The sandwich technique is a mindful way to give critical feedback by starting and ending with positive feedback or encouragement around the issue being addressed. Valid reasons for firing an employee include poor performance, being costly to the company, disruption, damage to reputation, criminal behavior, harassment, lying, drugs, alcohol issues, not being a fit with company culture, and policy violations. It's important to reflect on ways the company may have underperformed for the employee before deciding to fire for underperformance. Progressive discipline through documented conversations is recommended before termination. Be compliant with labor laws, which vary by state and country. Make sure to follow the laws that apply to any remote employees. Have clear written policies on issues like intellectual property, client lists, physical property like laptops, non-compete clauses, and non-disclosure agreements. This prevents misunderstandings. When firing someone, the final meeting should be short, 15 minutes max, since the decision has already been made through prior discussions. Inform them of the decision and provide final paperwork. Reframe dismissal as transitioning to alumni status. Maintain good relationships with former employees when possible. Reflect on failures by asking what questions rather than why. For example, what can I do better next time, rather than why did it go wrong? Take action on lessons learned. Good leaders make sure terminations are not a surprise. Great leaders do everything possible to help employees fulfill their potential elsewhere, even after leaving the company. Take time to reconsider an employee's potential before dismissal. The key messages are to follow proper legal procedures, have clear written policies, give employees warnings and feedback before termination, keep the final meeting brief, maintain positive relationships when possible, learn from mistakes, and help employees transition successfully rather than seeing dismissal as purely negative. The story describes the poor living conditions that immigrants faced in tenement buildings in the early 1900s, with overcrowding and lack of basic amenities spreading disease. The narrator's father grew up in these conditions, with his mother committed to an asylum and being raised by his abusive father. A woman named Helen Fuller from the Community Service Society helped shape the narrator's father's life by seeing his potential when he was 12. She supported him in going to camp and college, setting him on a successful career path. Helen Fuller had a profound influence on the narrator's father, despite only meeting a few times. He went on to encourage the potential in his children as well. The narrator believes great leaders guide others to unlock their potential, creating a cascade effect of positive impact across generations. Helen Fuller's support of the narrator's father set in motion impacts that changed many lives for the better. The story promotes the idea that all people can be great leaders by seeing and nurturing potential in others, regardless of their position or role, and that this kind of leadership has long-lasting positive consequences. The passage describes how the author's father lost his ability to speak in his final days. When asked who had the most influence on his life, the father struggled, but was eventually able to spell out the name Helen Fuller. This showed the deep impact Helen Fuller had on the father and others through guiding and supporting children in a way that allowed them to realize their potential. Great leaders don't make people believe in them, but instead help people believe in themselves, as Helen Fuller did for the author's father. The passage honors Helen Fuller for her leadership and influence and misses the author's father. Here is a summary of the key points. The book discusses Best Buy's Row experiment in the early 2000s, which tried to implement a results-only work environment, but was ultimately deemed fundamentally flawed. It notes that 2021 was an outlier year for Best Buy's revenue. U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy has discussed the loneliness epidemic in the workplace. Productivity when working from home was discussed in a conversation with a Bloomberg journalist. Presenteeism, or being physically present at work but not fully engaged mentally, can be addressed through simple screening, treatment, and education. A story went viral about a man who never missed a day of work in 27 years at a Burger King. He expressed a desire to finally take a day off, but only received a goodie bag as a token of appreciation for his loyalty after so many years. Gestalt psychology and the Gestalt language protocol are referenced in discussing how to let people go in a way that views them holistically rather than just parts. Advice from a marriage and family therapist is cited on how to actually let go of someone and signs it's time. Organizational psychologist Tasha Urich's work on self-awareness is referenced. Early New York tenement housing conditions are briefly described as so dreadful as to be indescribable in print. The term cascade effect, in reference to leadership living on for generations through those influenced, is defined via the Oxford reference. Here is a summary of items from the D section. Roald Dahl was a famous children's book author who passed away at age 89. Jack Daly wrote about leadership and emphasized the importance of caring about goals and making them meaningful. Data entry refers to manually inputting information into a computer system, often seen as an entry-level job function. A deep dive interview is a comprehensive interview process used by CultureX to evaluate candidates over multiple rounds. DEI refers to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that companies implement to promote a more inclusive culture. A demonstration allows candidates to showcase their skills and abilities during an interview. Department reports are updates given during daily huddles to review each team's progress and priorities. Desire refers to an intrinsic motivation and passion that drives employees' behavior and job performance. Setting up desks is one of the tasks involved in preparing a new employee's workspace on their first day. Dan Devine is referenced as an inspirational leader who helped motivate employees through challenging times at Culture X. Difference relates to valuing each person's unique qualities and perspectives in building a diverse workforce. DISC is a behavioral assessment tool used to better understand individuals' communication and management styles. Here is a summary of the key points. The passage discusses concepts related to leadership, employee motivation and retention, recruitment strategies, and creating an inclusive workplace culture. It provides insights from thought leaders like David Marquette, Khaled Ressler, and L. David Marquet on topics like ABC leadership ranking, psychological ownership, and results-only work environments. Retention strategies discussed include the retention rhythm approach involving first-day onboarding, weekly one-on-ones, monthly huddles and retreats, and annual reviews. Recruitment tips include evaluating qualifications, qualities, and references, recruiting from athletic programs or workshops, and using tools like must-have lists. Other topics covered are personal operating manuals, Maslow's hierarchy, diversity initiatives, and fostering physical and psychological safety in the workplace. It gives examples of companies that exemplify leadership and culture principles discussed, like Mars Inc., Google's Project Aristotle, and 1-800-GOT-JUNK. In summary, the passage provides an overview of best practices and lessons learned around building high-performing teams through effective leadership, talent processes, and workplace culture design. Here is a summary of the key points. Revenue goals are important to track performance against financial targets. Annual reviews, salaries, and rewards can be used to evaluate progress. Setting the right priorities and avoiding roadblocks is important for staying on track. Mentors like Tony Robbins can provide guidance. Safety in the workplace is critical, including financial, physical, and psychological safety. Proper policies and training help ensure safety. Hiring, onboarding, and developing talent is vital. Screening interviews, shadow days, and feedback help find the right fit. Workshops are one way to enhance skills. Communication through weekly one-on-ones, recognition, and transparency builds connections between managers and employees. Changing roles or status needs to be handled carefully. Self-evaluation, awareness of strengths and growth areas helps with personal and professional development. Learning comes from many sources, including stories, TED Talks, and more. Work-life balance, remote work policies, and addressing underperformance are important for retention and morale. Tools like StrengthsFinder can aid management.